Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is 5 questions to reveal your mother wound and what to do about it. So I'm really excited to be guided through this process. So if you have a note on your phone, if you're on the fly and you just want to digest it and come back to these questions, if you want to grab a journal and do it with us, this is a facilitation process with Bridget, and she's going to be walking us through discovering exactly what it means, because the language can feel so etheric and unanchored and super tricky to wrap your head around. So what we're hoping to do is just really let you know how you can make that more anchored and succinct so that you're able to show up and love yourself, your body, your family, and parent in the way that actually is most aligned for you, not in reaction to a wound.
I love that description because it's exactly right. And, why this is important, we really hope that these questions convey to you the value in going here, because even the word wound can kind of bring up discomfort and like this sense of, I don't want to go there because it feels uncomfortable or painful. But yet, as you know, if you've been on a conscious parenting journey for any length of time, we're going to meet those places, and our power comes with being able to lean in and to find the wisdom there and to get really clear on what is ours and what is our child's and what is being handed down to us that we're being invited to shift, to transform it and to appreciate as well. So that's really my desire that this episode does for you in your world and your parenting. So I might get straight into it. What do you think?
I would love you to walk us through that process, Bridget. Is there anything that you want to let anyone know about the mother wound before we start that process?
Yeah, ultimately I think, and I actually said this in an email to my community today, was that we can kind of enter motherhood and if you've got an experience of having perhaps a close relationship with your mother, you might think, oh, I don't have a mother wound. Like I get along with my mum, like it's not really there for me. And you'll hear a story like I've heard of your stories, Julie, where you did have quite a big mother wound and continue to experience that. And so those of us who don't have, great conflict in our motherline can think, oh, I don't have one. But yet the mother wound is essentially when we split off from our authentic selves because of our conscious or subconscious messages from our own mothers about who we need to be, or who they need us to be, or ultimately who society needs us to be. So when we consider it in that context, we all have a mother wound, because we all, on some primal level, learned that some parts of us, or maybe all of us, were not safe to exist, were not welcome to exist in some capacity. And so we learned to adapt, and we learned to perform, and we learned to be who other people needed us to be in order to get love. And so even those like me who perhaps have a connected relationship with their mother, you will still sense the parts of yourself that your mother could not be with. and you will be running headfirst into some of those places as you parent your own children. And so in parenting, all of our past hurts come up to be heard. And we get to make a choice. Do we make it about our child and that our child needs something more or needs to be fixed or changed, or that we somehow need to be better? Or can we look instead at the dynamic that's being brought up here for us to examine more deeply? And we do that when we can look at what we've come with, what we bring to our motherhood, what in our lineage is being activated as a narrative about motherhood and who we are as mothers. So that's really where I want to take this and hopefully unearth with those beautiful women listening, so that you can get a little bit of a deeper insight into what you come with and what you can do about that.
Sounds beautiful. So at this point in time, we just invite everyone to grab their pen and paper, or to just take a really beautiful big breath and just clear out your body of any tension it's holding right in this moment, as you begin to just open up and contemplate what might come forwards with the questions that Bridget asks, knowing you can return here at any point.
And if you are sitting down with some time on your hands and you do want to take some time with these questions, feel free to pause between the questions, so that you have as much time as you need to write to your heart's content. So the first question is, and I'm asking this because I would really love you to conjure up all that you feel is the epitome of ideal mothering for you, and ask yourself, what are the traits of the ideal mother for you?
So who we would like to be, or who we aim or aspire to be?
Yeah. So for you to really put on paper what it is that you would love to bring to the mother, to you as mother, the ideal mother. And then we shift a little bit with our second question. And I would really love you to be gentle with yourself with what perhaps this question brings up for you, and just notice and breathe if you feel some discomfort in this question. What do you never want to do to your children? And perhaps for you that evokes some pain from your own story or experience. But I would really love for you to be present enough with yourself and with that question to put that down and reveal that to yourself, because so often these painful stories are also what run us, and sometimes run us into the ground in motherhood, because we can try so hard to run in the opposite direction of what we feel is wrong or terrible about our mothering. And then I would like you to take some time to pop yourself in your childhood, and then in yourself now looking back, and list everything that you feel that you never received from your mother. What could she not give you? What do you perceive that she didn't want to give you? You may feel some emotion come up here. You'll perhaps feel some anger and some hurt. And I really invite you just to breathe through that and come back to your body now. And the next question is, looking back at that list and those memories, do you wish that you were mothered differently? And in what way? And then looking at what you've written and feeling what you feel right now. What do you find hard to give your children? And I want you to be really gentle with yourself as you get honest with that question, and feel into perhaps the disconnect between what you sense that your children are wanting and what you perhaps find sometimes impossible to give. You may feel a visceral reaction or aversion to providing that. And perhaps these earlier questions reveal to you a little as to why that is. So that is my invitation for you to sit with. And then I would like us to move the conversation into what we can do about it, about these questions. Because we can stay in these places and in these stories and in this pain and in what we perceive was not given to us. And we can blame our mother or her circumstances or ourselves for not showing up. But what that does is it keeps us locked and stuck and entrenched in a paradigm that we've become so accustomed to as women, which is that paradigm of domination and punishment. And if I just be better for someone else, or if I just do better tomorrow, it's deeply unfulfilling to stay there.
Yeah.
I could see that you were writing some things down as you
well, I always take notes during our podcasts anyway, because I find that deeply rich and meaningful. But what I was writing down then was just as you said that, I was like, yeah, amen. Gosh, it's like one of the reminders that I pull forwards front of mind for myself regularly, but also for the women that I work with. And I'm sure it's the same for you, Bridge, because it's just another way of saying the thing that you just said, which is because we didn't have it back then doesn't mean you can't have it now.
Yeah, exactly. And it can sometimes feel like we can't have it because we haven't got the imprint or we don't have the skills. But that's also an invitation to build that.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Because you're not broken.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it was meaningful and all of the things, but one, that thing that you think was missing just exists in another form anyway. Right? The law of conservation.
Totally.
Nothing's ever missing, nothing's ever lost, nothing's ever truly gained. It's just continuously in transformation. So you do have that thing, except that it's in a different form. So where is it? Can you see how you're already whole and held and supported in different ways, which are also, I imagine, deeply meaningful for your purpose, your mission, your life, your capacity to show up? So one, it's not missing. And two, even though you might feel the pain or the suffering of that thing that's missing, if you stop at, I didn't get it, so therefore I don't have it, that's wallowing. That's staying in the story of I'm broken and I cannot be fixed or healed, which is completely untrue. You are a self-healing mechanism continuously rewiring itself to health, continuously. You get a scratch, your body heals it. You get a cold, your body heals you. So your body is always, as is your psyche, your emotionality, your beingness is always re-navigating you towards healing. You never miss an opportunity to return to wholeness and a healed state. You never do. But if you stay stuck in I'm broken, you have forgotten and potentially acquiesced or chosen not to claim the fact that you are a fully self-healing mechanism designed for fullness and wholeness. And will always return to that. That is your baseline.
Oh God, I love that. It's like a sermon.
Because I just feel it so deeply in my bones, that just capacity I think that comes also from my naturopathy and my upbringing, is just that total trust in our innate ability, our innate capacity for healing, the intelligence beyond what we even know. Like the Fibonacci numbers and just the most incredible, extraordinary experiences that this world continuously recreates itself and continuously seeks. We forget
We so forget in our limited humanness, we forget. And also because we tend to take in information in such a way that every prior conclusion we've ever had stays intact, we really don't see everything. And so what I want for women listening is to see their story, because essentially this is a narrative. We're revealing to ourselves a narrative that we hold. But a narrative is not a truth. Every single memory that we ever have had has been a distortion. Because our memories are created by our senses, and our sensory perceptions cannot see everything. Because the amount of data that our brain has to process every second, it's over 2 billion bits. You would actually combust if you could process everything coming into your awareness. So geniusly, we don't. We filter and we perceive what's meaningful for us according to our values, our beliefs, what we currently know about the world, and everything kind of fits into that. So every memory that we reflect on, even in our childhood, there was another side to that memory that we couldn't perceive, even that really painful one. But we attach to the pain because on some level we sense that that's meaningful for us. There's some wisdom here for me to come back to. So I'll tuck that in my back pocket. And then every other experience of pain that feels like that gets tucked in there too, and builds a story about my mother is, I am, she can't, I can't, we're this, we're not that.
Yeah.
Labels, limiting beliefs, family, systems and structures that get patterned are reinforced by our behaviors. But when we ask ourselves wider and deeper questions, we can start to tease the edges of that and see our mothers differently, see ourselves and how we show up differently, understand our children in more expansive ways. This podcast is brought to you by Disrupt, Revealing the Mother Wound, an immersive 5-week container with me, with 4 transformative modules to change how you show up in your motherhood and in relationship to your own mother imprint. Module 1 is Uncoil, mapping your own mother wound and seeing wider. Module 2, The Spell, unveiling the perfect mother myth that defines modern motherhood. Module 3, Anchor, the family dynamic and your inner mother. Module 4, Artful, repatterning your imprint for connection and freedom. Each module is supported with workbooks in a separate course platform. It's also supported with weekly Zoom facilitated sessions and a sacred women's circle in the group as well. I invite you to join me for this for $333, and you can find out more at bridgetwood.life. We begin 25th of October. So when we ask these bigger questions, we can start to see that we have geniusly constructed narratives, stories, beliefs based on what we value. And what we perceive as most missing is what we're most looking to fulfill. Because we have this pain, we're looking out in the world to find all the ways to meet that pain, to fulfill that pain, to find the panacea to that pain. And sometimes the panacea to that pain might be, well, a mother can't be in my life. Or the panacea to that pain might be, well, I have to do everything possible with my children to never be like that. Or it might be, I just have to heal myself and every edge and every negative behavior in me and everything that's wrong with me to not be her. But if we don't enter these pathways of healing in a way that looks for our wholeness and brings forth into safety our own shadow, then we actually create more dissociation between our past and who we are today. And we're not actually able to move forward and gather all of our pieces of ourselves and our mother and our lineage in such a way that's sustainable to move into the future. Because ultimately, healing is a journey of acceptance. Acceptance of ourselves and our fallibilities, acceptance of the people who love us, and a willingness to see the reflected self in others, to see that we too have aspects of our mother. We too are going to do things to hurt our children, and that they will internalize those in ways that they may feel like we do as adults.
Mm-hmm.
But if we are to equip them into loving their wholeness, and we have to do that too. Wholeness is not just about, I'll accept every emotion that you bring me and I'll practice holding space. It's also, I can see and hold and appreciate the value of the villain in you as I can appreciate that in me. Mm. Because we still have those much earlier, patterns as humans of being, animalistic, and we're not going to spiritually bypass those parts of ourselves in one generation or whatever it is. We're going to meet them, and we're going to see them in ourselves and our children. And the value is in learning that part of ourselves and channeling it in healthy ways. Perhaps in ways our mothers couldn't, because they weren't given frameworks. But we are being given that. We are being given that permission with our children and with ourselves to do that. And so my invitation is for you to really sit with those questions and sit with what they bring you to today, and where you feel things were missing, because nothing is ever missing. It's just in a different form. Mm. Who was supporting you if you feel like your mother wasn't there? Mm. Who was caring for you? Who was connecting to you? Who did have your future in mind, or your needs in mind, or what you cared about in mind? And when you look at your children and you look at the times where you're feeling guilty about the times you couldn't meet them, well, who did meet them? Mm. And what was the value of that person being there for them instead of you? Because sometimes this work on the mother wound and on our family patterns, it can focus a lot on the innocence of the child, not recognizing that the child is also a whole soul, that the child is also on some level co-creating an experience to encode in their history and their story to be meaningful for them. And so that's not to absolve ourselves of responsibility, absolutely not. But it's also to remind us to not laden ourselves with the impossible burden of guilt that somehow everything is always us, and that it's always 100% us. We are 100% responsible for how we show up, but the dynamic that we're in is also a co-created dynamic. And so the healing comes when we recognize that as well.
Mm. Yeah. Amen.
I can just see you nodding away.
Yeah, I know. It's not very useful for the people who are not watching us live in our group. But I'm like, yeah.
So, and then certainly, really loving yourself through the fact that you're going to get new layers, that your children will reach ages where a lot of pain is stored for you. Mm. And that you are invited into meeting that.
Mm. Yeah, I always find that, which we've spoken about before, so fascinating, because every woman that I ever speak to who begins this awakening journey with you and I, at some point has the realization that her children may one day perceive her the way that she perceives the other villains in her life, of which her mother may be one of them.
Yeah.
Or her father, or, or he or she, they. So, and often that's felt as terrifying.
To be that.
Yeah. What if I do all of this and my kids still hate me for it?
Yeah. It's humbling though. Like, I actually love that as a question, because it reveals to us where we have our attachments.
Tell me about that.
And where we are enmeshed with someone else's experience of us, which is an impossible burden to carry. You know that in an intimate relationship, if somebody else can't be okay unless you're okay, or you can't be okay unless someone else is okay, I would suggest that that's an unsafe relationship. Because, and I can see aspects of my mother wound in that, but it suggests that someone else's identity is so wrapped up in you that they can't safely and wholly exist on their own. So if we are doing things with our children as a way to not give them wounding, it's an impossible task. You're almost asking them to not be human. And is that what you really want for them? Some of our greatest wisdom, some of our greatest learning, some of our greatest expansion has come from those deeply painful moments. And knowing that in yourself, would you want to take that away from your child? As impossibly difficult as it might be to sit there and witness them go through something painful. Maybe it's witnessing them being bullied. Maybe it's witnessing them be hurt. The healing for them comes in the steady trust that we can work to cultivate in them. Much like we trust the cut to heal, as you said. We trust the innate intelligence of our toddler's body to heal their graze they just created on their knee. We don't worry about that. We know there's an intelligence there. And so if we knew there was an intelligence in an experience that our child might have of being excluded, if we knew there was wisdom in that, they might find themselves there at the very point where they feel like they don't belong. What if they find themselves there? Because they're no longer enmeshed or attached to the perceptions of others. What if that's beautiful for them? What if?
And what if you're the person they have to reject in order to find themselves?
Yes.
Which I think is what the crux of that fear from mothers is.
Yeah. And
I loved what you were saying in terms of dismantling identity too.
Yeah.
You're not going to be okay if they see you the way that you see your mother or whoever, insert person you don't like.
And this is also an invitation back into our own center. Like as if, like martyrdom and motherhood invites you to give up every piece of yourself for your children, right?
Yeah, total abandonment of self.
Total abandonment of self. And so if you do that and become so lost in another and then that other rejects you, who are you? Are you okay? No, and you're probably going to blame them. Our children aren't looking for us to be a martyr. Our children aren't looking for us to be perfect. They're looking for us to find ourselves, to own ourselves, so that they know what that looks like. And so that they have full permission for that. And that their sovereignty is not dependent on how okay you are with that.
It's so powerful.
Isn't it? And also, like, I so get that, like, the tension for us as mothers and that holding on and that letting go and that dance. I mean, it can be excruciating. It's particularly when we invest so much of ourselves in these humans. But, I mean, ultimately, for everything that we're giving, we're also receiving. There is this fair exchange there. And if we feel full of resentment, then that is feedback for us. That is for us to unravel and understand. And for us to see what we can claim back of ourselves, rather than being so lost in doing and being everything for everybody else. But, the perfect mother myth and patriarchal motherhood constructs will celebrate you for that, for you being the metamorphosis of whoever anybody wants you to be good enough. But sometimes it's at the cost of you. And if you're not safe to put in place boundaries And if your identity is built on how much you give, then you're going to struggle with that.
Mm.
Because you can't be okay unless you perceive other people to tell you that you're okay. And that, I mean, like, that again is revealing the kind of relationship imprint potentially that you've grown up with. And it is a pathway of initiation into deeper self-love and into deeper presence with who you really are.
Mm.
Because actually those boundaries and those shifting that's going to need to happen for you to find that in you is going to be a gift to those around you, but it's not going to feel like one. And so there's going to be a requirement to hold on to yourself in that.
Mm.
But how is that beautiful for them to experience that? I think about that with our children as they grow. They might not like chores. They might not have to, they might not enjoy a lot of what we ask them to do. But part of that, those things, part of meeting difficulties in relationship and with friendships and with, whatever's going on in their world, that's part of their growing sense of self and individuation into the world that we are responsible for equipping them with.
Mm. Yeah.
And where we dance that edge and when we struggle, that's like an invitation. Why am I struggling so much with this transition?
Mm.
Why am I resisting that in them? How is that feedback for where I'm struggling with that in myself? Because, the intertwinement in that mother-child dyad is so big.
Mm.
We're literally meeting ourselves, our inner child, all the time.
Mm.
And sometimes that's joyous and beautiful and expansive and like just delicious. And other times it's heartbreaking.
Mm.
But can we hold it all and raise ourselves as we raise them into their wholeness?
Mm.
That's my invitation to everybody listening.
Yeah.
And the value of, I know we might perceive the mother wound to be in the past, but it's very alive in the present, as we're hearing, right? Very alive in the present. And so when we lean into that and we work through it, we can see what's possible when we step out of the pattern that we're in and we get curious about why it looks the way it looks. And, what if we kind of like diverted it that way? What could be down that path that I haven't considered because I've been running this one? It's beautiful, the potential.
Mm.
So if you want to go deeper on that, I really invite you to jump into Disrupt, Revealing the Mother Wound, which begins on 25th of October with me, which is a 5-week immersion, including a beautiful women's circle as well, to really be held in a community of women who are doing this work and who are really deeply desiring a different narrative, a more expansive one that does claim who you are in motherhood and does claim the potential for deeper relationships in that.
Yeah, I don't actually think there's anything more pivotal in your capacity to individuate, to claim your power, or to parent with your own unique freedom than healing your own imprinted mother wound.
Mm.
Because it goes even beyond you, right? Like it's the lineage of
The lineage
you come from.
Huge. Like the lineage is huge. I was doing some research into that today, like looking at that. Like we know that we get our DNA from both parents, but it's the mitochondrial DNA that's just from the mother line.
Mm.
So at that fundamental cellular, like health level, it's all the mother line.
That's so fascinating.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
So it looks so you're not like, I was able to go, I went on to ancestry.com and I've gone back as many generations as I can get records for, which is to my great grandmother, whose name was Bridget, amazingly.
Aww.
Which I don't think
your mum didn't know.
I don't think anybody knew.
That's amazing.
I know. I mean, although Bridget's probably like the most common name in Ireland.
Still though, that's amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah, it is amazing. So, but I was looking back and thinking, how many of their stories are woven into my DNA that I am acting out? Because how much I often think, like, we think we have free will, but if 95% of what we run are subconscious programs, a lot of them aren't even our own.
It's true.
So how much of your motherline is alive in you right now? And are you willing to look at it and repattern it? Like, how amazing. We live in a time now where we understand how the brain works. We understand that we get to shift things. Like, it's so powerful.
So powerful. Yeah, I'm not remotely being, glib when I say I really think it's a fundamental, pivotal space isn't the right word, but learning, growth, and healing on the mother wound changes your life.
Yeah.
Like I don't honestly think that there's anything else that could anchor what's possible for you in this lifetime than the mother wound, because it's everything to do with the feminine, the body, life, energy, appetites, desires, sexuality, parenting, relationship, flow of love, how hard I push myself and drive my body into the ground versus how much I can love, nourish, and receive.
Yeah.
How much can I hold and love and nurture myself and my creations, whatever they be in the world? Like, it literally is fundamental to how you be in the world.
Amen. All of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, it is essentially, how do you feel about life force?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because we come from it and we align ourselves back to it all of the time, whether we're consciously aware of it or not.
Yes.
Because if all of our beliefs are laid down between age 0 to 7, the most dominant caregiver in that time for most of us is the mother. So we come to form our personality and temperament in relationship. But the beautiful thing is we also get to heal in relationship. And how that happens can be beautifully done with women. It can be done with our children. It can be done with our partners when we bring consciousness to it.
100%. So I would really advise you, I don't know that there's a better teacher on this than Bridget. I certainly don't know of. So I definitely think this is an incredible invitation to jump into what will be a transformational 4 weeks in a really held, secure, safely guided and initiated experience of uncovering and healing your relationship to mother.
Yeah, thank you. I feel deep reverence to the women who've already said yes, and to anybody else who feels called to come join, because it's a really powerful and sacred space to be carrying women through, and I feel really honored to do it.
So where can we do it? What is included? How do we find it? All those things.
Yes, so you can find out more about it at bridgetwood.life. There are 4 key transformational areas that we work through. So the first is called, and I've had a mental blank, and I did this last week as well. Why do I do this? It's like I put myself on the spot and then I forget what I call things. The first one.
What's it about? Can you just talk what the first module is about?
Yeah. So the first module is all about mapping your own. The first one is uncoil. So that's mapping your own mother wound and seeing a little wider. So we take some of the questions that you've dealt with today, but we take that deeper and wider to look more broadly about how that's constructed. And the next module is called the spell. So that's unveiling the perfect mother myth that defines motherhood. And that's supported by sociologist Dr. Sophie Brock. So looking at the broader cultural narrative around the mother that we take on unconsciously, and our mothers and their mothers also take on. Then we move to anchor, so the understanding the family dynamic and your own inner mother. So seeing how who we are as mothers is also influenced by the family dynamic in which we live and have come from. And that also brings in universal principles to understand support and challenge that's also governing how you show up as a mother. And then we have artful. So that's the repatterning stage. So working with the imprint that you've got to find more connection and freedom, and ultimately potential beyond the narrative that you feel so perhaps consumed by right now.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, bridgetwood.life to find out more about that and sign up. And we begin the 25th of October.
Perfect.
And what have you got going on coming up, Jules?
I have Tantric 101, which is free for until the 25th of October. So if you would like a free little mini 3-lesson quick reference course to do with your partner, that is where to head. So you can find that on my socials or at julietenner.love.
Beautiful. Remember to nourish the woman, to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.